The nation's first primary in New Hampshire is underway, and many of the candidates are out there trying to woo some voters. We've got team coverage in the Granite State with Major Garrett and Nancy Cordes, but before we get to them, let's talk to CBS News senior political editor Steve Chaggaris and Caitlin Huey-Burns from Real Clear Politics. Hey, guys.
Hi.
Morning.
So listen, sorry, Steve. I was going to Steve, New Hampshire voters are known for making up their minds at the last minute. Some make their minds up while they're standing in line at the polls. So talk about the impact from these last-minute voters.
Well, the impact is it makes it really hard for us to predict what's going to happen, and especially on the Republican side. We're looking at about 4 candidates who are vying for second place. Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, Jeb Bush, John Kasich. They're all bunched up in the polls there, and I think we're going to be really looking closely at the voters who are deciding at the last minute and independent voters. In New Hampshire, people who are independent can vote in either the Republican or Democratic primary, and we don't know where they're going to go, which ballot they're going to pull. So that's really, there's a lot of just last minute things that we really can't anticipate. And so that's sort of the fun of covering New Hampshire is we'll be waiting for these returns to see how this all turns out.
Caitlin, on the Republican side, Donald Trump is expected to win, but how important is it for him to win by a large margin? We saw, during the caucuses that the expectation had a lot to do with the whether or not people came out as winners or not. Marco Rubio was in third place. He seemed like a winner because they expected less. Big things are expected from Donald Trump here.
Right. Well, he has had a commanding lead for the most of the campaign season, and lately he has really shifted his strategy in New Hampshire. He used to just hold these big, rallies and such, but yesterday and the day before he was holding smaller, more intimate events that are pretty typical for New Hampshire, that kind of retail politics that voters favor here. He did a couple of town halls, restaurant meet and greet, and that sort of thing. And it remains to be seen, though, whether his lead is as large as the polls suggest. I've talked to a lot of rival campaigns who think that lead is softer than the polls seem to suggest. So we'll see if he's able to keep up that margin. And as Steve mentioned, something that's going for Trump is the fact that all these other candidates are kind of bunched up together fighting for that second place spot.
Steve, during the last GOP debate, Marco Rubio got attacked by Governor Chris Christie because he kept repeating this one line, dispelling with the notion that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. He kept repeating that, and Governor Christie called him out on it. It seems as if this has hurt him, but I guess the question is it because they think that he's just a well-coached candidate, or because he fundamentally lacks the experience that some say you need to become president of the United States?
Well, that was the underlying question at the debate: is name your accomplishments, and are you ready to be president of the United States? And in not answering that question repeatedly and then pivoting to these talking points, which is what Chris Christie was really pointing out, is this guy isn't ready to do this. That's going to be the question that voters are going to have to answer. And so there have been moments in the last couple of days since where his opponents have really highlighted the fact that he's very scripted, and this scripted candidate meme that has started is really just sort of plays at the notion that he might not be ready to do this. And so we'll see what voters think. I mean, he was not like he was running away with a lead here in New Hampshire. He was bunched up with these other 3. He had momentum coming out of Iowa, and a lot of folks thought that after Iowa, he would coalesce this sort of alternative candidate situation, Trump and Cruz, and then who's going to be the establishment candidate. A lot of people thought that his performance in Iowa would help him with that. But then he hit Saturday, and so now it's just raised a lot of questions among establishment Republicans whether he's the guy that they're going to coalesce behind. If he has a good night today in New Hampshire, then maybe all these questions about his readiness go away. But if he falters and comes in third, fourth, or lower, then there are going to be serious questions about Rubio's future.
I want to hear from both Caitlin and Steve on this next question. You know, Governor John Kasich is polling quite well. Jeb Bush is trying to make a comeback. Out of Iowa, there was a lot of talk when it came to the Republicans that there would be 3 tickets out of Iowa. That doesn't seem so clear now, especially after the last Republican debate. And traditionally, there's 2 tickets out of New Hampshire. There's somebody who wins and then a strong second place. But with so many candidates vying for second place, do you think this is going to go down in a traditional way?
I actually think that New Hampshire is not going to play the traditional role of helping to winnow the field this time around, because the debate on Saturday night really threw the race into a bit of a chaotic state. As Steve mentioned, Marco Rubio was expected to do well here, and then really floundered on the debate stage, and really gave his rivals Jeb Bush, John Kasich, and even Chris Christie a real sense of fresh air. You could tell following them on the trail the past couple of days that they found some new momentum. And so I think that even if they don't win or come in second, they think that the race is destined to keep changing, keep evolving, and they're trying to make their case for experience, saying that they are battle tested, prepared. And so I could see a situation in which the results tonight don't provide as much clarity as we've been hoping, and those candidates continue on to South Carolina. And
to Caitlin's point, I mean, you look at the governors, and so you're talking Bush, Kasich, and Christie. Now, Christie, as you just showed in that poll that you put up there, he's down in around 5% average, which, if he doesn't boost that at all, I think that there may be the only winnowing I see may be Christie in this situation. Bush has an argument to stay in this. If he can come in second, third, or fourth, Bush can say, hey, look, you know what, South Carolina is much more, a much better playing field for me and my candidacy. It was very good to my brother, George W. Bush, in 2000. His family's down there. He's got money to continue on. Kasich, on the other hand, it's a harder road for him. So if Kasich, I think, doesn't come in second or a strong third, he's going to have an argument, try to make the argument that he can move forward, but his organization isn't nearly as strong as Bush's. He doesn't have the money, and he's playing this moderate role in the party. And they're going into states like South Carolina and the Super Tuesday states, which are a lot of southern conservative states that aren't really going to play to Kasich's strength. So what is his play moving forward if he doesn't come in second or a strong third?
And to that point, I was going to bring up John Huntsman, who came in third in 2012 and thought that was his ticket to ride, as he called it, heading into South Carolina. He ended up dropping out before the South Carolina primary. So it's not always as it seems, really.
All right, Steve, let's talk about the Democrats. Bernie Sanders has maintained a very large lead in the polls for weeks. How important is a decisive victory for him?
I think, so for Sanders, he didn't have a decisive victory at all in Iowa. In fact, he basically tied Hillary Clinton. People are spinning it as a loss for him. So he needs to show that he can win in order to move forward. He has a tough calendar ahead as well. Again, you get to South Carolina, you get to Nevada, you get to these March 1st states, and these are states that are much more moderate, much more diverse. Those are not qualities that Sanders has been attracting in his voters. He's really attracting very liberal and very young and very white voters. And so he has to basically, I think, win big here to say, hey, I'm a viable candidate. I beat Hillary Clinton. Coming out of nowhere, I beat Hillary Clinton. Now, Clinton's people are spinning it as well as a neighboring state to Vermont. And, of course, Sanders is going to do well. And they're trying to, play down expectations here and maybe just try to keep the margin of victory for Sanders smaller. But we have to remember that New Hampshire is a place that is actually quite friendly to the Clintons. And if Clinton loses big here, it really says a lot about Hillary Clinton's campaign at this point, and it will raise a lot of questions. Bill Clinton came in second place here to, by the way, a neighboring former senator from Massachusetts, Paul Tsongas, and it was Bill Clinton's comeback moment. And Hillary Clinton beat Barack Obama here after losing to him in Iowa in 2008. So for her to say that it's because Bernie Sanders is a neighboring senator that he's going to beat her handily here, she has to look at the underlying problems of why isn't she attracting more young women to her campaign? Why is she constantly knocked off message by having to deal with distractions such as her emails? Those are the things she's going to have to talk about moving forward. forward or deal with moving forward if Sanders wins big here.
Yeah, Caitlin, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, that sort of what will be a win for Hillary Clinton. Is it okay if she just sort of squeezes by because she's polling so well in South Carolina that, once the New Hampshire conversation is done and over with, maybe she'll have some momentum moving on to the next contest? What do you think?
Well, I definitely think that she does want to get New Hampshire behind her. You could tell over the past couple of days they were, as Steve mentioned, setting really low expectations for her here. If she can narrow the gap in New Hampshire, I think she could consider that, some kind of success in a way. But I think that she will try to wrap this up quickly and head straight to South Carolina, where she is better positioned. Although I do think a win here for Sanders will be a huge success, and he'll be able to ride that into some of these other states. He has also been trying to, diversify his campaign a little bit in terms of endorsements. He received an endorsement from the former NAACP president recently, and I think he'll try to use that ticket in South Carolina and some other places as well. But I think it's in Clinton's best interest to move on as quickly as possible. But as Steve mentioned, also acknowledge some of the challenges that her campaign will still continue to face. And she mentioned that a little bit yesterday in her rally and also in interviews. And so I'm really interested to see how she frames this coming out of New Hampshire.
Yeah, in fact, I'd like for both of you guys to sort of talk about this. I mean, doesn't this sort of point to a fundamental problem with the Hillary Clinton campaign? The fact that she is, for lack of a better word, neck and neck with a guy who has been an independent in the Senate. And I mean, if this had been another candidate for another Democrat, it just seems to me that there are some issues in her campaign. People really are struggling with whether or not they support Hillary Clinton. What's going on there, guys?
Well, I've been saying this for months. Sanders is a guy that in any other year would have been considered a fringe candidate in the Democratic primary process. It's a guy who's never run for office as a Democrat. He is a self-described Democratic socialist. He, just would not be normally considered a serious threat to somebody like Hillary Clinton, establishment, longtime Democrat. I think the big issues here are twofold. First of all, she really is having trouble articulating a vision for her candidacy. People know who Hillary Clinton is. She's been in the public eye for 25 years. Everybody's opinion on her is baked in. They either like her, they hate her. There's nobody undecided on Hillary Clinton. So that's a hurdle she has to get over. She's also, again, as I mentioned before, really answering distractions on a regular basis. She's talking about emails. She's talking about her Wall Street connections. She's not really articulating a vision. She's dealing with distractions a lot, and her message is constantly knocked off. She's constantly knocked off message. Sanders, for his part, is out there talking about all these promises he's going to make if he's elected president, and making promises that are attractive to a wide swath of people in the Democratic Party, especially liberals. He's talking about no college tuition and better health care, Wall Street reform, campaign finance reform. These are core issues that Democrats are in love with, and he doesn't have the baggage of being somebody who's been in the public eye at the forefront for years, and people's minds are not fully made up on Bernie Sanders. So they hear these great things that he's saying, or things that they think are great that he's saying, and they start being drawn to his message. And he's able to go out and actually articulate a vision and not have to deal with the kinds of distractions she's dealing with. And so that's helped him, and it's made him a real alternative within the party to Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the authenticity factor is a really big one here. You hear it from voters over and over again. And voters that I've talked to here at various events also say that they are a little upset with the Clinton campaign for framing this as the reason that Sanders is doing so well here is because he's a neighboring senator. They're saying that they are compelled by his message. And I've also talked to voters that say that are using their Sanders vote as a way to vote against Hillary Clinton, saying that it it provides them with an alternative, some kind of choice in this campaign. I mean, Democrats haven't had a competitive election since 2008, obviously with Barack Obama running for re-election in 2012. So Democrats see this as a real chance to, get their voices heard on these particular issues that are really important to the base that they don't feel like they have been able to address in Congress or in the past campaign.
But guys, and what is the party saying, the Democratic Party, the party bosses? Because they want to win. They want to win this election. Can Bernie Sanders win a general election? I don't know who the GOP candidate is going to be, but if it's Bernie, can he win in some of these other states that are not as blue as the one that you're in today?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think there's some concern. They're not very public about their concern, but there's definitely concern that this has been a little harder than it needs to be for Hillary Clinton. This was, I don't think anybody wanted this to be a coronation for her, but at the same time, I don't think anybody fully expected that she'd be losing New Hampshire to Bernie Sanders, of all people. So yes, there's concern, but I think there's also a sense that most Democrats who are supporting Hillary Clinton feel that this is not going to be a long-lasting problem for her down the road. They look at the map, they look at her organization, they look at how she sort of built her campaign to withstand the long primary campaign in terms of getting delegates. She's already ahead in super delegates, way ahead. The establishment's behind her. It would really take a lot of losses, I think, coming up for her to be sort of knocked off the nomination. So there's not a huge worry at this point, even if she loses New Hampshire, among Democrats that she's not going to be the nominee. But yes, is there concern that she's facing these troubles, especially this early on in the primary process? No question.
And it's interesting to watch, actually, Republicans on the campaign trail. They still talk about Hillary Clinton as being their opponent in the general election. They're starting to mention Sanders a little bit more, but really the focus still remains on Hillary Clinton, which goes to show that Republicans anticipate her still being their opponent in the fall.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Steve Chaggaris and Caitlin Huey-Burns in New Hampshire for us. Fascinating discussion, guys. We're going to be talking to you, I'm sure, throughout the day. Thanks so much.
Thanks.